Sisters and brothers, a very hearty welcome to each one of you to the 18th Sunday in the ordinary time of the liturgical year. Today we are celebrating the feast of the Transfiguration of Jesus, an experience made by the three close disciples of Jesus, seeing him as someone who is different than the one whom they experienced here on the face of the earth. The Transfiguration. As I was reflecting and meditating on this particular aspect of the Transfiguration of Jesus, I was reminded of an experience narrated about St. Francis de Sales. Francis de Sales was the Bishop of Geneva, Annecy. As the Bishop of Geneva, Annecy, one of the things that Francis de Sales used to do regularly every year was the pastoral visitation of his priests in the diocese. Annecy was a hill country, an area where a lot of mountains are existing. And most often, he had to go on the back of a horse to reach to the place where the priests were living. Once, Francis de Sales took on to this pastoral visitation, and it took him about 2 months to complete meeting with all his priests and the people of the diocese. He met with them, shared their life experiences, lived with them, prayed with them, celebrated the Holy Mass, and blessed them. After a tedious pastoral visitation of about 2 months, he returned to his bishop's house. It is said, as soon as he came back to his room, he threw the bag on the coat, went to the wash basin, and looked into the mirror in front of it. And looking at the mirror, seeing his own face, Francis cried aloud, "You wretched Francis, I pity you. You wretched Francis, I pity you." Later, his biographer Legeni would mention, looking at his own face, Francis found the dryness that he was experiencing inside of him. The absence of God, the absence of spirituality, and the absence of self-confidence. "You wretched Francis, I pity you." Remember, he was the Bishop of Annecy, Geneva. And now, as he was instructing his people, his priests, to pray and to become better human beings, he himself was not praying at all. He was overwhelmed by the ministry that he was doing. As a result, he understood God's presence is no more there in him, and that was reflected on his face. Yes, when I read this text about the Transfiguration, this is something that comes into my mind. When you are filled with the power of God, God's divinity will be revealed on your countenance. And this exactly is the experience that the disciples made at the time of the Transfiguration. Whether this particular experience that they made is a historical reality or not, or whether it is an eschatological experience, whatever be that, one thing is very clear. You can never experience God until and unless that God experience is within you. Who are the people who are embarrassed at this incident? The disciples, Peter, James, and John. There is no mention at all in the text that Jesus was embarrassed by all that was happening with him. He is God, and there is an essential dimension of his Godhead inside of him. He is a man with authority, that ousia, the authority is inside of him. His own person in its essence is being revealed before his disciples. He has no embarrassment, He is not puzzled at all. Something natural has happened. Yes, my brothers and sisters, this exactly is the revelation given to us through the first reading as well as that of the second reading. The first reading is taken from the book of Daniel. There's a wonderful narration about the experience that Daniel makes there. Someone who was of the Ancient of Days comes now, and his garments are like white as light, and his hair is like wool. He sits on the throne. The throne has got fiery wings. It has its chariots all around, and he is presented as someone very divine. And there comes in front of him someone like a son of man. Before him, all others bend their head to worship and adore. Yes, Daniel is already foreseeing the glory of God that is revealed before the humanity. It is something that is very revealing for us too, that the transfiguration of Jesus is not merely a cleverly devised myth. As St. Peter would say in the second reading today, we are not speaking about a cleverly devised myth. We are speaking about our own experience. Experience that we made with Jesus Christ. His face was shone like the sun. His garments were as white as light. And there was Moses and Elijah speaking with him. And we heard the voice of the Father from heaven. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Peter says, it's our experience that we are sharing with you. We have nothing to hide before you. We reveal before you the reality of the person of Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God, whose glory will never fade. Yes, my sisters and brothers, what we are experiencing through the transfiguration of Jesus is the glory of God revealed in and through the person of Jesus Christ. What we are led into through this narration is the post-resurrectional experience that we would be having once in our own lives too. Think about that intervention of Father, the voice of the Father coming now in a loud manner. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. A similar narrative we would also find in the Gospel of John, which happened at the time of the baptism of Jesus. Yes, Jesus, who is empowered by the Father, is revealing his glory through his humanity before his disciples. The garments and his countenance, the voice of the Father, the presence of Moses and Elijah are all signs that would narrate who he really is. The presence of Moses and Elijah speaking with Jesus is also a foretaste of what would happen even after our death. They who are no more here on the face of the earth are still with him, which means a Christian will never die. As the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 1 says, this body in which we are is merely a tent, but God is preparing for us a house in heaven which shall never be destroyed. After the resurrection of Jesus, Jesus revealed before the disciples this glory that he is now enjoying. Yes, my sisters and brothers, we are called to a new experience with Jesus through his transfiguration. But very often, we are held back by our short-term thinking. Look at Peter, James, and John. What was the response that Peter gave to Jesus? He was so happy to be in this heavenly experience. He never wanted to give up this experience. He tells, Lord, as you have revealed yourself to us now, let's make 3 booths, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah, and let us be here alone. Let's not go away from this experience. Very often, it is a typical narration of our own life story. Brothers and sisters, as always we hear, we are all on the Mount Tabor, trying to experience the glory of God, but none of us are willing to climb the Mount Calvary. But without climbing Mount Calvary, we will never be able to understand the glory of God. Every human experience that leads through suffering is a journey towards the glory of God. That's why St. Francis de Sales beautifully would say, Mount Calvary is the Mount of Lovers. Those who love Jesus will also be ready to sacrifice themselves for His sake so that they would be able to experience the glory of God in their own personal lives too. Yes, today we who are awaiting the transfiguration experience in our own life, the glory of God, the aura of God's goodness in our life, we should also be ready to take up that cross with Jesus and climb the Mount Calvary so that we will be able to say, yes, Lord, I'm here with you, not only in that glorious experience of your heavenly might, but much more, even when you suffered for our sake, shedding your blood and dying on the cross, we will stand by you. Later, Peter and his companions learned the story through their own personal experience. As legends would say, Peter died upside down on the cross. Rather, he chose to die upside down on the cross because he felt he is not worthy even to die the manner in which his master died. What a surrender when he knows that nothing is more important than to be with my master in his glory. For that, I will climb the Mount Calvary, the Mount of Lovers. Transfiguration comes to us, my brothers and sisters, in our daily life experience. The cross that we carry in our life, my brothers and sisters, is only a step towards the glory that is awaiting us. Let's take life seriously. It is a mixture of pain and joy, but joy will always last forever. Amen.